One of the things I absolutely love, I mentioned this to you in the commercial break is that picture tweeted out by Madame Lagarde of you, Christine Lagarde, and Mario Draghi celebrating last week the 25th anniversary. I got to say, oh, what to be a fly on the wall. How was that? Did you all just talk shop the whole time?
Well, it was very moving, obviously, because 25 years is a quarter of a century. And we started the ECB and the euro in an environment of great pessimism. As was said a moment ago, it was I would say, boldest endeavor. I would not say experiment, because it seems to me it's much more than an experiment, but the boldest endeavor in that domain ever. So it was normal that we had quite skepticism over both, I would say, in the US and in Europe. That being said, it seems to me that at the moment I'm speaking, after 25 years, it's been an undeniable success. The euro is a credible, solid currency, a clear number 2 in the world, with a lot of, I would say, distance with the number 3. We have clearly, very clearly, resilience, demonstrated resilience, because we had the subprime, we had Lehman Brothers, we had the sovereign risk crisis in Europe, we had the COVID, and you could see how resilient we were. I think that we also proved something which is very important, I would say, historical trend. We started with 11 countries, we are now 20 countries. In my 8 years of mandate, I welcomed 5 new countries, you see. So there is something underlying, which is very strong.
On that point, do you expect to see more? How many more countries do you think will join the ECB, will join the euro?
Well, we certainly have a number of countries that will come in, but some are very close to come. I don't want to anticipate, of course. I welcome 5 countries. Mario Draghi welcomed 2 countries, and Christine welcomed 1 country, and she will welcome more than 1, of course. So the dynamism of the historic endeavor is there, it seems to me, and very, very striking when you compare, of course, with the overall, I would say, skepticism at the very beginning. So from 11 to 20 is something in a very short span of time, of course. It's remarkable.
There were concerns, and there continues to be, that perhaps some countries sort of fudged their way into the euro, that perhaps the rules weren't stringent enough. Do you think the rules need to be tighter going forward to admit more countries in?
No, I think, I mean, again, the rules are to be re-examined, in particular, you know, the fiscal rules. So we will see what happens in this exam, which is, of course, very important to take stock of all what has been observed in the past. But it seems to me that it remains very important. You don't enter the euro area without taking commitments that are of extreme importance. So that there are rules to enter seems to me absolutely normal. And I think also it's a way of consolidating the support of the people, because one of the most important things as regards the euro is that we started, as I said, with a high level of skepticism, taking into account the boldness of this endeavor. But at the moment I'm speaking, 79% of the people of the euro area are backing the euro. And this, in our democracies, is perhaps the most important success. I mean, the backing, a massive backing of the people for the euro.
Along with seeing more countries admitted coming in, you've also lived through many rampant inflation cycles. When you're looking at what's happening now, do you think we're about to face equally as on the way up, a large down cycle in terms of deflation, disinflation? Where are we at this moment?
Well, the situation is very demanding, obviously, on both sides of the Atlantic, I would say, and more generally for all the global economies that are participating in the global, I would say, interaction. So we all have the same problems, particularly on both sides of the Atlantic, frankly speaking. I was looking at the most recent figures. We have the same core inflation in the US and in the euro area. So this is really demanding. I remain optimistic, convinced that the central banks have confirmed their target of delivering to our people around 2% in the medium term. So we will see exactly what happens. I was impressed by the fact that this target, this definition of price stability, has been reaffirmed very, very strongly by Jay Powell and by Christine Lagarde, so that the goal is clear and there is a joint, I would say, definition of price stability, a joint definition of our target by all central banks that are issuing currencies that are in the basket of the SDR, at least all convertible currencies, the yen, the dollar, the euro, and the sterling. And this is something which never happened since I would say, bursting of the Bretton Woods model. So this is something which I trust is very important. We have an anchoring, an arithmetic anchoring for price stability at the core of the international monetary system, and that reinforced my optimism.
So at the same time, when you're talking about inflation being similar or some of the similar core inflation in both Europe and the US, we have this pause, skip, whatever you want to call it, debate unfolding at the Fed. Is that an option, you think, that gets us back down to 2% inflation? Is that the right discussion to be having right now?
Well, rightly, the central banks of all, I would say, advanced economy, and particularly across the Atlantic, are looking, of course, at their own responsibility, and they are committed to deliver what I said to their people, the price stability that they want. And in my opinion, of course, we are not in the same boat exactly, but we know where we go on both sides of the Atlantic. I consider that it is normal that at certain moment there can be a pause in the US and no pause in Europe, or the reverse. I mean, really, each open market committee, each council of governors has to take its own responsibility, taking into account all circumstances. So the situation
I guess to put a finer point on it, let's just look at the ECB then. What is the risk at this point? Is it hiking too much or not enough?
Well, any decision you take, you have to take the balanced decision. And this has to be made data dependent, as they say, on both sides of the Atlantic. They say now we are data dependent. So it seems to me that you have to judge the situation on a collegial basis, taking all into account. My sentiment is that in the US, taking into account headline inflation and core inflation, it is not abnormal that you have some kind of debate on whether or not to pause, even if there are, of course, many views that are expressed. And the market, it seems to me, thinks that it is not negligible to perhaps observe, when time comes, an increase of rates. In Europe, where we have a higher headline inflation, it is not abnormal that the idea that a further increase of rates is quite likely. But again, the central banks are wise, in my opinion, not, I would say, committing themselves to a particular figure, because we are living in a world which is full of uncertainties and new, I would say, events that can come, new, I would say, data that can have to be introduced in the decision-making process.
Monsieur Trichet, before we let you go, what is still undone for the Euro project? What still needs to happen here 25 years on?
Well, I would say certainly the banking union is not achieved, which is extremely paradoxical, because we are supposed to have a single market. And by the way, we have a single market of cars. We have a single market in the industrial goods. But we don't have, paradoxically, when we have a single currency, we don't have a single market of banks and capital. So achieve a single market of financial services, both banks, commercial banks and investment banks, and capital is, for me, of the essence. Now, that being said, in a continent that is now experiencing a war, I would say, of course, it goes with the saying that we have to do a lot more in political union, in diplomatic union, in defense union for the Europeans. So a lot of hard work to be done. But after all, we are celebrating our 25 years in the ECB. The Europe construction has 75 years or more of experience. And let's project ourselves in the next 25 and 75 years, because this is a historical endeavor that has to be judged in the long term, in the long historical term.